Just a quick intro to this session. So I'm going to talk about top 10 health check tips. I'm going to talk about my experience and give you some pointers in some of the apps, some of the tools you can use to speed up a health check. In the summary for this session, I have a bit of a pun on the word health check in terms of whether to suture wounds in your org, to do CPR, or even to basically give it the kiss of life and start again, maybe a transplant. I'm going to come at the end and just do a summary around that. So I'm just going to talk about some of the things we do around that. So firstly, a little bit about me. Yeah, I've been 28 years doing this now. Seems like a lifetime, because it is. Been using Salesforce since 2007. My first talk was on the London user group in Apex, when Apex was just launched. And I had no idea what I was talking about then, and some of you would say I still don't know what I'm talking about with Apex, so hence I'm on the admin zone. So using Salesforce a number of times, speaking at Dreamforce and other community events. So the first point I've got to make is about setting your scope. So you've gone in, you're either in an admin in an existing company, or you're a consultant or a freelancer like myself, and you're brought in to do a specific job with a health check. So health check can be done at any stage on a Salesforce org. It might be you're taking over support of someone else's code or the configuration, or you're going to just in a new role, you just want to have a quick check on how things are running. Are things getting better? Are they getting worse? First thing you've got to do, though, is think about what you're going to do, okay? It can't be an open-ended health check. Or like Neil's session, you'll never end up. You'll constantly be doing technical, constantly fixing things to smaller and smaller levels. So think about your scope. Use third-party tools to supplement what you're doing. That'll give you a good broad range and will fill any gaps in your own skills. And also create your template first. So if you're going to produce a Word file or a PowerPoint, agree that with your stakeholder, whoever's commissioned you to do the work. If you don't do that, what tends to happen, you produce this lovely deck at the end, and then they ask for more. Can I have more detail on that? Can I do that? And it just extends the engagement longer and longer and longer, okay? Be realistic with the goals and the deadlines and the team that you have. If you don't have a developer in your team doing a health check, you're doing it all on your own, then make sure it's clear at the start what you will and what you won't be setting out to do as part of that health check. Also, depending on the time frame, if it's more than a week, personally I think health check should be 2 to 4 weeks in that period. But the last one I did, I was actually also doing a lot of project work, a lot of workshops as well, so it took me 2 months, okay? So it's really, really important to document findings as you go. It's like, I'll talk later about the layers of the onion. As you unpeel things, you think it's not too bad, then you get deeper and deeper and deeper, and then you realize it's a terrible situation, okay? Also really important, where you find quick wins, don't wait for the end of the health check to do something about them. Let someone know so they can see some value in what you're doing and some immediate actions. One of the ones I did recently, I went in, the first thing I saw was that passwords were set to 5 characters, they never expire, and it was a company with a very secure set of systems and important security. So don't even get me started about people having password sheets in Word and everything else everywhere. But first thing I did was say, right, we've got to tighten the security. Second point is start with an org review. So it's a top-down approach. So use the tools that are available there. So the system overview tab, you see it every day. Take note what it's saying, okay? Have a look at it, see what it's saying. It gives you a starting point. Also in Salesforce, more and more, there's these health checks appearing in the setup menu. If you haven't looked through setup recently, have another look and see all these great things that Salesforce have given us. So use the security health check, okay? It's important to listen to what it's telling you. Use the object limits as well. So go to each of the main objects that you use. Don't look at everything. Look at the ones that you really care about. Are you running out of external IDs? Are all the master details used up? Have you run out of formula fields, text areas? Look at those things so you know what's happening. Also, if you want to know where the areas that are most used, look at the storage usage. So in this case, not unusual, tasks, activities was the #1 item in use. So what are the areas that are mainly used by the business, and focus your health check on those objects that are really used by the business, not on the thing they do once per year. There are some really good tools as well you can use. So things like Org Doctor, Ben Edwards has kept that going, so SF Toolkit. There's lots of tools on there, still available, use it. It's all free, okay? It's a great starting point. I like to use things like list views as well. So again, in this one company I went in, not only was the password security bad, but actually loads of profiles had modify all data access. Okay? And I found that out just by doing a simple list view. If I dived into each one, it would have taken me ages. They also all had configure application rights as well, so any of them could have changed anything. So that was quite terrifying. Use things like the adoption dashboards off the App Exchange. If you don't use them, use them. Make sure that people are using it. Why people aren't using that, it identifies an area where maybe part of the business needs some more training. Also, just finally, you also start looking at the sandboxes that are in use. So quite often you go and you see lots of sandboxes, look at the deployment connections. If there's lots of deployment connections to production, there's probably lots of uncontrolled changes that may conflict, overwriting each other. Make sure there's a clear path, they're following a clear path for that. So health check isn't just about the code and the config. Yeah? It's about the whole system and all the business processes around it, which I'm going to touch on. The third point is configuration review. So although I'm technical in behavior, I like to look at configuration first, because most of the things that should be done should be configuration first, so why not start the health check there? I prefer to do a top-down review. First thing I ask companies, are there any configuration standards? You usually get a blank look. What does that mean? You mean coding standards? No, configuration standards. How do you name your workflows? How are you using processes? If there are some, look at what they are. Do you think they're any good or not, in your opinion? There is some stuff, I think, on Trailhead around best practice around this as well. Also look at things like page layouts. Are there lots of page layouts? Are page layouts using record types? Or are they using field level security to switch fields on and off depending on people's profiles, so every single user has a very fragmented and messy display that doesn't make any sense to them? Are they reusing dashboards and reports, or are they written to only work for a particular set of data? Okay, very common to do that. Are they using all the my this and my that areas, or have they hard-coded that in filters? Are there lots of list views? Do people open up the opportunity page? They don't like using Salesforce, so they click list view and there's 100 list views in the list. And half of them say Ben this, Tom that, Betty this. Not great. So again, areas where maybe things could be trimmed back. Are the search and lookup layouts? So those that know me know one of my pet hates is I ask someone to build a custom object. They deliver that, and the first thing I check, I do a search or use lookup, and they haven't bothered to configure them. It really, really annoys me, and it no doubt annoys users as well. Look at the validation rules, the workflows, the flows, the processes. Are they reusable? Are they written in a way where they can be switched on and off when you need to do maintenance? Okay? That's just general patterns. Look at things like the data security. Look at the org-wide defaults. Are they appropriate for what that company wants to achieve? If there are org-wide defaults, also looking at the sharing rules. There's an amazing amount of times I've had a whole bunch of sharing rules and yet an object that's public read-write. Very strange. Clearly someone did a change but didn't bother to clean up after themselves. Look at the role hierarchy. We've all experienced this. A role hierarchy based on a company's org chart is very, very common, and it's constantly being changed and lots of sharing rules written. People aren't looking at their data access levels instead. And then look at both the physical and logical data model. So by logical data model, are they creating opportunities in custom objects? It's classic. People create these things. Well, it's not an opportunity. Yes, it is. It's a revenue-generating event. Go back to basics. Is this a revenue-generating event that should be in a pipeline? Often you'll find those custom objects, and you'll see someone's then written some code to copy values into the opportunity to fix a report. Okay? But also in the physical model, has it been designed in the right way? Have they put lots of lookups trying to fix things, to patch things from an opportunity to account to a contact, back to an account, again, back to an opportunity, going very circular. So look at those things as well. Some very good App Exchange apps for doing this. I think most people are familiar with the Candor field trip. If you haven't used it, use it now. Okay, it's free. That will give you a report of the field usage. So look again at those favorite objects, the ones that you most use. And what you'll probably find out, in the last one I did, actually, we had 497 custom fields on opportunity. Okay? So it's kind of, I couldn't actually do any changes because I didn't have the room to do it. Then ran Candor. 360 of those fields had been used less than 2% of the time. Okay? We also had 15 record types that had never been used. There we go. Config workbooks, another free tool. It can sometimes struggle with very large orgs with lots of config, but it is a free version that gives you a number of reports, and there's other tools in that which you can extract data from, use it to extract information about when fields are last used or created. It's actually quite hard to get out a nice spreadsheet of when fields were created and last used. Cut and paste is your other way of doing it. Doesn't work very well with Lightning. Fourth item is the technical review. So even if you're not technical, you can do a technical review. okay? The first tool you can use is the Salesforce security scanner, the checkmarks code scanner. Now, I've used this several times for doing App Exchange apps, and I used to insist on it in one of the projects I worked with. Every sprint, I used to say, give me a checkmarks report. I want to know if things are getting better or worse. It just identified hotspots. Again, it won't work if you've got lots and lots of code. It would tend to take 2 days, and then you never get a result, or it'll time out and say, sorry, I can't do that. You need to pay for the paid version. But at least you can use it for free. Also, we've heard before at the London Developer Group from Lorenzo and his tool Clayton.io. It's a really, really good code review tool. You set some sliders around your coding standards, and it gives you a lovely output about what may be wrong. We recommend anyone uses that who isn't using it already. Again, coding standards, naming standards, do they exist? Are they relevant? Do they talk about Lightning still? Okay? Is that included in there? And what we know from using Salesforce 10 years is things change. So code that we called good 5 years ago, we don't call good anymore. Okay? Patterns change, the way we use things, the tools that are available to us use. Apex triggers we used to have to write. We didn't have process builder. Okay? Now we do review whether those things are still appropriate. One review I did recently, I found a whole bunch of code which was a standard controller. And I looked at it, I thought, why have they written this? It's just got a save method. Why have they done this? Oh, it must be something special they've done with some extensions and other things. Must be something special. Traced it back to the Visualforce pages, none of them using it, not a single one. Had 100% code coverage though, so I couldn't quite delete it because we only had 5 classes and I needed to get the code coverage up on the others first. But it was interesting, you can find things like that that the tools won't find for you with some visual inspection. So when you're doing a visual inspection, check against the standards and best practices. If you don't have standards, again, you can find some. You can Google some, and OOPS published some as well that you can use. When you're picking classes to look at, don't start with the biggest class that's there. Okay, you're going to find the same problems in all likelihood in an average-sized class. Look at some old code, look at some recent code. You'll find there's different issues most likely across those, and that's okay. No one's to blame for that. It's just how things have changed over time. And as the education and the community has got better at teaching each other how to write good code. Try and look at everything, Visualforce, Apex controllers, triggers, the unit test, JavaScript, if you are able to do that. If you don't have someone on your team skilled in that, that's fine. It's not part of the scope from that point number 1. Also, on the last point on there, what's that say? Health check. Right, so a health check is not a detailed debug. A health check is not something you do to find all your technical debt and every piece of code that needs to be rewritten. That's not what it's for. Okay? Number 5, Lightning review. So a hot topic. I'm going through a system at the moment where I was putting some of our business units on Lightning because when we started talking to them, they wanted only the features that Lightning supported. Unfortunately, very quickly, they now want features that Lightning doesn't support. Okay? So it's an interesting journey. But one of the first things I did in this case was do a Lightning review so I knew where all my S controls were and everything else, all the other areas that may be an issue. The company, in this case, had actually used Lightning and individual users who were switching it on and off for themselves. So it actually made the task a bit easier. But the Lightning health checks that you get from setup are changing with every release. Even the output changes. I think they've actually dumbed it down recently, I've got to say. But it's still useful. But look at the lessons learned. It's a checklist of potential hotspots for you. And most importantly, after those releases, check what's in there and adjust your coding and config standards accordingly. Okay? I don't know if anyone else noticed this one. Spring 17 report URL hacks back and officially supported. Wow, that's going to save me a lot of work on the old orgs that I've developed. There's a good trailhead, obviously, on doing a Lightning review. And I'd recommend anyone that's not done that one does it. It's a very easy badge to get as well. Integration. So this isn't just when there is integration. Even if you don't have integration, you should look at this in your health check. So is there an enterprise architecture strategy? Is anyone thinking about this? Okay. If they are, there should be someone that is the data architect or someone that owns that part of it and owns the middleware solutions. If there is middleware, is there a service catalog for it? The amount of companies I go to where they say, oh, we've got an ESB. Oh, that's great. Can you share with me the service catalog? What's the service catalog? You know, what can I use on that? Oh, you can't use anything yet. We just built an ESB, but it's nothing on it you can talk to yet. Okay. When are you going to produce something I can talk to? Oh, we've got orders and invoices and we've got a CDM coming, all these things. Okay, when are they coming? Okay. Right, so I want to talk to that one. Oh no, you can't call it from the internet. So people build things that block you from actually using them. They say that's the way I've got to build things. So just be aware of that, find out. You don't have to be an architect to ask the question. If you have connections to Salesforce, then if you're able to find out what APIs they're using. I've had over the years a number of places where people have used the enterprise WSDL instead of the partner WSDL, so it's very tightly coupled to any changes. You know, if someone changes something, you can't, it breaks it. So therefore, companies were stuck, unable to change fields in Salesforce or the benefits of Salesforce because some other system was relying on it, and it takes them 3 months to change their APIs. If there aren't any connections, then think about should there be. So is there data elsewhere in the ecosystem that would help your Salesforce users? You know, is there a system that has orders that they can use? Are there invoices they can expose? Just ask the questions if it's possible. Things like single sign-on we take for granted, but it's a very good tool for getting people using Salesforce, and it works with the Outlook connector, Salesforce One, Lightning. So just ask if they can do it. Is there overlap with other CRM systems? So a number of people I've talked to today have had the same experience as me, where Salesforce is in use, and so is Dynamics, and so is PeopleSoft still, and other things. So why is there that overlap, and is there any distinction in which system's doing which, and who's controlling the data between those? How is it being synchronized? Are there clear systems of record between them? Okay. So requirements fit gap. As I said at the start, this isn't just about the code and the config. It's also about the whole ecosystem of how Salesforce is being used. In this case, what I did for this company was they'd done a CRM blueprint of everything they wanted CRM to do for them in their business. So I lit that up with just simple red, amber, green of how much Salesforce they were using to do that. And if I zoomed in, you'd see that most of those things in there you would call Salesforce. So while they were paying for their very moderately priced licenses, they were only using a very small fraction. And it's the classic case where they were using the opportunity object for account data, for lead data, for opportunity data, and order data, hence why it was almost 500 fields. Didn't use the other stuff, didn't need it. So what I did is paint them a roadmap where we could go to a model where we were using about 80% of that Salesforce. And where there wasn't an answer from Salesforce, or I didn't consider campaigns to be marketing, I suggested things like Pardot, okay? Also suggested things like Wave to them, okay? So think of the other tools as well which can help deliver more benefit to that business to meet their requirements. Salesforce is only going to be in use, and we're only going to have jobs if it's relevant to that customer. It's a bit of a cheat, this one. I've sort of combined 2 points in one. But the point here is both Center of Excellence and DevOps are very common now. People are getting the message about Center of Excellence, but they're not always being run right. So participate in a Center of Excellence meeting. Understand who's been invited to that. Are the right stakeholders? Very good Trailhead module on this as well. If the participation isn't there, why not? Is it going at the level of every single user story that people want to change? Or is it looking at the vision and the strategy? Is it pitched right for the audience? Is the scope of those meetings correct? Similarly on DevOps, what we want to look at is the whole life cycle of Salesforce. So is there a proper change management process, or do people just do everything that people ask for without reviewing it? Is there a proper environment management? Are they using a dev, a test, a SIT, a UAT environment, or are things just randomly deployed? Is there a release management cycle? Are they properly communicating when they release functionality? Okay. When I went through this exercise of, I deleted 110 fields on that opportunity object yesterday. 10 I didn't delete because one of the business users said, I asked for that 6 months ago, I didn't know that was there. It's probably common to all of us. Housekeeping, so data archiving, don't wait till you hit 90% or 140% or 150% to start doing it. Check there's a strategy in place on day one. It's a good thing to do. Backups, tools like EMC spanning will do a backup. There's lots of other tools to do backups. I sort of came across EMC about 6 months ago. What I liked about that was it actually does a restore, okay? There's no point having a backup if you don't know how to restore it. We don't want to pay Salesforce $1 million to do it for us. And also things like GearSet, and there's some other tools similarly. So they can do an org monitoring, so they can monitor your production org. And when someone changes something, you go, why has that changed? Or we can do an org compare between your sandboxes. Are uncontrolled changes happening outside of the process? Symptoms and root causes. So it's about solving the right problem. Your job to do in a health check is to identify the problems, and if you can, the root causes. You're not there to propose all the solutions, but it's good if you can suggest some. Users will always tell you those symptoms. They'll tell you how to fix them sometimes as well. If we just do this, we just add a third account lookup on the opportunity page, it'll work. But sometimes the answer is, maybe I need some contact roles in this opportunity object. Okay? Why is there an email address field on here? Why is it not using a contact? People will give you the solution they think is correct. So, symptom poor adoption, there's possible causes. Is the problem really poor training, or is it poor usability? Mark Benioff said, you know, no one ever learned to use Amazon, you just picked up and went with it. And when I started using Salesforce 10 years ago, I did it over one night before going in, doing a configuration with a customer, having learned it on January the 1st and doing a workshop on January the 2nd. It was that easy. It's a lot harder now. But it's a good example where you don't always have to train someone to use something if you build it in a way that's much more usable. Is the solution, is it a benefit to the user who has to use it, or is it a benefit to their manager because it makes their job easier? Which one's going to get adoption? Okay, so think about where that barrier lies and how much you need to give that benefit to that user. Is the problem of adoption a lack of access, the wrong people have access, or is it communication? Are people not aware of what data is in Salesforce and therefore they're not using it? Are notifications being used on Chatter to alert people on Salesforce 1? So look at those alternative causes and solutions, but most importantly, whatever you think is wrong, play it back with the users first before you go in front of the exec, okay? Because there may be another thing they don't tell you, okay? We used to have that, but 3.5 years ago, someone decided if we can't show a marketing ROI, then we won't do any marketing, okay? There are other reasons you may not know. And finally, thinking of the output. Communication is key. Manage the expectations. So for different audiences, you need a different message. So on the right here, I have some examples. I did this executive summary thinking this was dumbed down enough, okay, for a senior exec. I showed it to the sort of head of IT, and he went, no, I need Janet and John, okay? I just want to know how many things did you find wrong, and when are we going to have them fixed by? That's all he's interested in. So I dumbed it down to critical issues, and they love that bottom slide, okay? But the admins, that's too basic for them. So things like org doctor on the right, this was really useful for them. It's a really nice format, and it's something they can run themselves after I leave, and they can keep checking, is it getting better? Are we doing better than last time? Make sure you've got those actionable results, the quick wins, and to go and do your health check and say, well, I identified this many problems, and actually I've already fixed 6 of the high priority ones. That's going to wow them. They can say, right, and when are the rest going to be done? Well, actually, it depends. If you can use an infographic, or in this case, I've just used a simple red, amber, green, it is quite surprising how the more senior you get, the lower your intelligence seems to get. So I don't understand that, but it's true. Reuse those tools and outputs, as I've done there. And it is a subjective task, okay? The tools will give you metric outputs. They'll give you things that are wrong. They'll give you things that you can fix. But sometimes you do need to look at things. On one of the code reviews I did, I found a piece of code that I would never have found just from the tool. It's 100% code coverage. It was written nicely, but it was never used. So you have to have a deep look as well. You have to be subjective. People will ask you, how many items did you find? How much is it going to cost to fix? When are you going to fix it by? The job of health check is not to say that. It's just to identify that these are the issues that have been found, and these are the resources we need to take to the next stage. So if you can estimate the effort, great, but more importantly, set some priorities for them. Tell them what needs to be fixed first. So finally, to wrap up, this last company I was at, I sort of built this workflow to try and decision make it, to try and help me decide, should I start again or not? So what was important? Was it data quality? Was the data quality good? They said no. Why is the data quality not good? Well, most of it was blank, and there were a lot of duplicates. I looked into these duplicates. Each business wanted its own private accounts, private opportunities, private contacts. So the duplicates are always going to occur. I was never going to fix that by moving it to a different org. If it was okay, fine. I can just fix it where it is. Business wants a clean start to Salesforce. Well, they say that, but that doesn't always mean they want that solution to be a new Salesforce. Okay? Is there a lot of customization in code? You really want to shift that and rewrite it all? Probably not. So again, fix it in place. If it says a clean start, then data volume to migrate is manageable. So yeah, in my case, it was manageable. So I came down here. Otherwise, I could just say, do you know what? I've got some data fixes, I've got some sharing, whatever to do. Complex integration? No. So my decision came out as re-implement on a new Salesforce. And I actually didn't do that. And the reason I didn't do that is because there's politics involved. The company's using Dynamics and Salesforce. If I'd gone to that exec and said, we're going to start again, do Salesforce again, someone would have said, or we'll just switch on, we'll just do this in Dynamics instead. You extract the data, we move to Dynamics. And I would have been out of a job. But it wasn't the best thing for the company either. So it's worth building these decision matrices, but don't be held to account by them. Don't think it's the be-all and end-all, because things like the politics, the environment, and the will of the people. In my experience, the end users don't want things like Dynamics, and IT departments do, okay? Because they know the technology, it's familiar to them. Okay, any questions? Don't be shy. Okay, thank you. Oh, there's one.
Yeah, it's just about, you mentioned the opportunity object with 100 fields, some of which are account and other things. And that in kind of computer science terms to come up with a design which didn't end up with that, that's normalization in computer science terms. Now, with Salesforce, we get, obviously there's a lot of people coming into Salesforce who don't have a computer science background because it is very friendly, very point and clicky, and you can set it up very quickly. But how do those people avoid those kind of end results? What would be the way of trying to mitigate that kind of end result, I think, for people who don't necessarily have maybe a computer design or computer science background?
It's almost like you prepared that question in advance and we didn't. But I know there is on Trailhead, actually on the basic courses, some really good stuff about data model design. And I'd encourage anyone coming new to that to look at that. And because you've got the opposite problem of people that have done computer science and they are database architects and thinking everything has to be in third normal form. And we all know that doesn't work. It doesn't work for storage, doesn't work for reporting, all those things. So it was all doing that balance and that blend. But yeah, the Trailhead is a great resource to use to look at that so people understand what things are. Because again, in this case, the opportunities, yeah, there was start date 1, start date 2, start date 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, further you go down, guess what? Most of them not being used. If someone had been there that knew what they were doing, they would have been a related object. No more? Oh.
How do you identify unused code?
How do I identify a?
Unused code.
Okay. I can't remember how I did that. I think in my case, what I had was there was only maybe 5 or 6 Apex classes, and I wanted to do a detailed review of those to give some feedback. And I gave some feedback back to those users, red, amber, green. I gave them the good points and the bad points. So it was only really I happened to cross that by chance. Obviously, if you wanted to, the problem is the code, if you run a unit test, it's all being used. Okay? I don't think it's worth putting on event monitoring just for that purpose, because that comes as part of Salesforce Shield. But it's not something, if you've got lots of code, it's going to be hard to find unless you can walk through everything. So I don't think there's a simple solution to that one. If you're suspicious about a piece of code, then I would just I'll tag it and get someone to do a deeper analysis. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Just a quick thing to tell everyone and remind you all to get your stickers in, hand them in at the keynote upstairs on the next session. Okay. Thank you all for coming today, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Cheers.